Well, hello and welcome back to Read Becca. It's time once again for my weekly chatty catch up on everything I read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading, as well as some general lifey chit chat for the week. And this week it was again kind of a low and slow reading week. I've been very busy, hectic, and also not had the mental bandwidth for a lot of reading. So I've just been doing other stuff when I have the time, and so light on the reading this week. The one thing I did finish was a comic book, Survival Street. And I have to think it came from the page for talking about this because he talked about it just a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I must check that out because this is a wild comic. As you can see, it's very like Sesame Street coded. This first volume was written in 2022 and 2023. There are like 5 issues in here. Issues are the little floppy comics. And there is a second volume out now. So you can actually read the first and second volumes on Hoopla if you have access to that. I saw my library had the physical copy and I had to request the first from physical. This book, as I said, 2022-2023, they wrote about a dystopia, a very, very near future dystopia that starts from 2025 with the complete corporate takeover of America, and all public services, including PBS, are made private and for profit. And it is alarmingly prescient. They even wrote a note at the back that talks about that a bit. You want to push far enough into absurdity for it to be escapist and funny, but if it's too close to the real debate, people are already sordid or burned out, and it's harder for them to go on this ride. So we wrote Survival Street to be a wildly exaggerated, comically grotesque, hyperbolic dystopia where the rich and power-hungry were finally able to take full control of America and strip mine it for profit in parts, including the people. And to match the absurdity of our exaggerated society, we chose heroes that could represent absurd levels of hope, kindness, and everything good we were promised people could be. Children's television puppets. But ever since we plotted these stories last summer, to our horror, real life has wildly accelerated straight toward making things we pitched as ridiculous hyperbole the actual news. If a sci-fi writer predicts the future, I'm pretty sure you get a technology named after you. But when your satire starts coming true, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, so that's this general sentiment. I really love the art style. It's really wildly colorful. It is extremely graphic and violent. And there is a sense of humor in the violence, I think, because, for instance, a mild clone of the National Rifle Association is getting guns into the hands of literal babies, things like that, where it's just so over the top, where gun culture is everywhere. Everyone's lives has been transformed into profit for any reason. The Muppet Americans, or Felt Americans, are more or less a stand-in for immigrants in some way. Many of the Muppets came from the Snuffleupagus Islands, and they brought this culture that is being exploited. Their home island was sort of stripped for resources, and then they immigrated because there was nothing left there to some degree. And so that really analogs a lot to the immigrant situation, where then they're very treated as second class and people just are not good to them in general. And that has only worsened with this shift toward corporatization. And so now the Muppets are like revolutionaries who are trying to turn the tide. They're trying to help all these migrant children who have been separated a bit willfully, separated, and are being turned into laborers, used for child labor, used to sell, literally to sell off to people. And so they're sort of trying to act in revolt to this situation, this very oppressive regime. And this first volume felt satisfying, but it doesn't really feel like it concludes anywhere. So it obviously needs to continue going to the second volume. So I need to pick that up soon. But yeah, this was a little crazy in terms of being over the top, but yet also hitting a little too close to reality. So I enjoyed it, and it very much entertained me. I kind of was, as I said, having struggles with focus, so I was reading it one issue at a time as I read through. I think there were 5 issues in there. And I completely forgot to read off who this is actually by. Sorry, it's by a bunch of people. The script is by James Asmus and Jim Festante. Art is by Abele Kusanov. Colors by Ellie Wright. Letters by Taylor Esposito. Chapter breaks by Abele Kusanov with Ellie Wright. Character illustrations by Jack Goodman. And cover by Benjamin Dewey. And this is a Dark Horse comic, which is very fitting. This feels like a Dark Horse comic for sure. And it was a great time. So I will be going on to the second volume for sure. Other than that's all I finished for this week, which is very light on finishes, but I have been reading Silverborn, the newest Morgan Crow book by Jessica Townsend, and I am about an hour and a half from finishing the audiobook, and it's due back today, so I have to get on that or Libby will steal it from me if I don't finish it. So that will be happening later on today. As far as watching stuff, I didn't finish any stuff that I was watching, didn't watch any movies, so I have nothing to catch up on watching. I've just been keeping up my ongoing shows. So nothing there. Life has been very, very busy and just hectic all around. Earlier this week, I was going to get my oil changed, and that actually was great because my dealership is where I usually go to get oil changes because I bought my car there. I get extra deals. But they were having a very extra deal where you could buy a package to pre-purchase oil changes for a certain block and cover them, both your oil change and tire rotation. For me, I went with the next 3 years, and you're paying basically half of the cost of what oil changes are now. So that was great because that will save a lot of money, and assuming prices are going to continue going up, at least for the next couple of oil changes, I would assume, that's gonna hopefully save me even more. So great deal. But I was gonna reward myself for being the adult and going to get my oil changed and everything by going to a library branch that's near there that I never go to. And I really like, they have, I think, more of a sci-fi selection than my branch does. And I completely forgot. I was just so in my head and trying to keep focused and keep everything in order that I went right by it, and I realized too late. I was like, oh, I was supposed to go to the library and I didn't. So I didn't get my reward that day. But otherwise, it's been a very good weekend. I've been having a low-key-ish weekend and trying to not further stress myself out. But this weekend is a big festival, an international festival in my area. And sadly, it's a little bit smaller because of the grant situation and a lot of vendors, because it's international, not wanting to show up there. I think very much to the comic book, where immigrants are being extremely mistreated. That is affecting that sort of population's involvement in local events. And actually, I should have mentioned, in this, there the major police force is ICE, but it's new ICE, so it's nice. Very appropriate. And so it was a smaller event, but the weather, for the first time ever in my experience since going to this thing, it was actually tolerable and not ridiculously hot. And I got in early enough that the number of people was somewhat manageable. It was still very, very crowded, but it was lovely. So beautiful, perfect day for it. The temperatures are almost fall-like, probably summer for most places. But here summer is unbearable, so it was lovely. So I ended up going and getting, I stayed for 2 bands, and I got a bunch of foods. So I got, apparently it was Rue's cat wheel time, so I had to just let him run there for a second. So I got a bunch of great stuff. I got a spinach and feta sambusa, a spicy katsu japchae bowl cup thing. I got, what else? A masala soda, which I had never had. That was great. And I got a matcha Japanese cheesecake, which is the big fluffy cheesecake, and got that for dinner tonight. It's gonna be a good healthy dinner. So that was very exciting. So it was a great time, good food, good music, beautiful weather. So I'm very, very happy I made it out despite being quite tired. What else for this week? I think that's it for me for this week. I can't remember anything. I will leave you with some butterflies. That's what I'll leave you with. I saw a couple of lovely butterflies while I was out and about this week, so I'll give you a clip of those. So I don't even have any recommendations this week because I'm so all over the place. So anyway, and there's a Rue saying hi. This is a mess. So anyway, I will leave you with that. I hope you have a wonderful week in reading and in life, and thank you so very much for watching.